right, that was awesome. We get to introduce our next guest and speakers, Collaboration for Good. Actually, it's from conversations to action, how the NFL is building bridges of opportunity through the Inspire Change program. We'll be inviting Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce up here to talk about what are first downs and what's a field goal count. Just kidding. We're going to have an esteemed base here. It's Clare, Graff, Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility at the NFL. Samantha Stuckert, Senior Director in Global Brand and Customer Marketing from the NFL. Moderated by my colleague, Don Goodburn, Head of Enterprise Customer Marketing at Everfi. This is an amazing program. You're going to see a lot, but they have actually granted over $300 million in this program. So this is just an amazing program for social justice. So looking forward to hearing from this.
Hi, everybody. Excited to be here with Clare and Samantha. And wanted to just talk a little bit about how we are all having a big impact on brands with purpose and creating opportunity for change. At Everfi, we are able to reach education to students who otherwise wouldn't have that missing learning layer through helping organizations tackle intractable social issues. And one of our excellent partners is the NFL. And I know they do a multitude of work, which they will touch on a lot of it. But I'm excited to sit up here with the two of you. So do you want to start off and just give us a little bit of a background on some of the work that you're doing to create brand and purpose unified at the NFL through your fans in the community?
Sure. I think we've obviously all heard a lot about authenticity here, and that's really key for any brand. It's key for us, and I would say that the cause work, the purpose work that the NFL does has happened for years and years and years, almost as long as the NFL has been in existence. So it's really foundational to who we are, and it's really connected to the fact that we have this massive platform. So we know there's opportunity for us to really create change in the communities that we play in the communities that our fans live in, and we want to take that opportunity and really leave those communities hopefully better than where we found them. And as far as authenticity goes, we touch on a lot of causes, we touch on a lot of areas of impact, but it's really key that work is the leader and the marketing of it comes afterwards. So we wouldn't be able to communicate to our fans authentically if we were doing it for the purpose of creating a marketing campaign. It's really for the purpose of doing the work, creating the impact, and if there's a halo effect of bringing fans in, making them feel more connected to the brand, that's great, but that's really secondary for us.
You mentioned something that's really important is that storytelling component and how those stories are happening, and you all are creating those stories with the great work that you do. Clare, can you talk a little bit about the Inspire Change program and just some of the work and examples that you've been putting forward?
Sure. Like Samantha said, it really does mean the work comes first. If we were having this conversation 6 or so years ago, I would have had a much different story to tell. We were really just starting out our work then, and not necessarily for the most perfect of reasons, just being candid. It was around the time that Colin Kaepernick knelt, and we were really at a crossroads with our players in terms of what we were going to stand for. And obviously that there has been a whole host of events since then, notably the summer of 2020, but our work really started then, and we were really guided by our players in terms of, if you say the word social justice, it could mean different things to many different people. And so we had to define how we were going to work on it so that we could measure our impact. So we took the lead of our players and we landed on 4 key areas of focus: education with a focus on mentorship, economic advancement, police community relations, and criminal justice reform. And as you can imagine, even those definitions have changed over time. The way we spoke about police community relations pre-2020 is much different than the way we talk about it now. So it's definitely been an evolution over the course of time, but those are our 4 key issue areas.
Thank you. And I think what's really important too is the work that you're doing is inspiring the next generation. So, sometimes fan base is generational with the NFL, but the opportunity to really inspire students and children and the youth to do good and to do more good. Can you talk a bit about just culture at NFL and how you're putting that out forward through this Inspire Change campaign for youth to do more good?
Sure. I mean, what's nice about the organizations we fund is they reach a wide swath of individuals. We focus a lot in criminal justice reform on individuals who are currently or formerly incarcerated, for example. But specific to youth, between education and economic advancement, we are really right in the crosshairs of working with youth in a really meaningful way. Again, 6 years ago it was sort of like, everyone was trying to figure out what we were doing, and so it was sort of education writ large. It is much more focused now, meaning when we fund the Boys and Girls Club of America, we don't just fund them on anything. We fund them specifically on their Think, Learn, Create, Change advocacy program that they roll out to youth who attend their clubs after school. City Year, we used to just fund them writ large. They're like AmeriCorps in schools. And then we got much more focused and realized that there's all kinds of data, you guys know it, about students learning better when they're learning from someone they can relate to or who looks like them. So rather than just funding City Year writ large, we fund specifically their ability to increase stipends so that individuals from underserved communities can become those teachers, and it makes a huge difference. So we sort of started broad and really focused in, particularly when it comes to youth.
Thank you. And we also have a video to share some social justice work that you have.
Before the NFL's involvement, Alabama Appleseed was a 4-person nonprofit. When I suddenly got the call from Inspire Change, I'm pretty sure I cried for a while. Within 3 years, we've gotten 13 people released from prison.
I thank them for everything that they have done, because without Alabama Appleseed, I know I would be still in prison. Alabama Appleseed, they took my case and threw into whole freedom. It's a miracle from God.
Having the NFL by your side, it's like the secret weapon. The NFL support has opened doors in the state, it's opened doors around the country for our once tiny, obscure nonprofit. The NFL not only funds us, they encourage us, they inspire us, they make us want to dream bigger and work harder and fight more.
We're so proud that Inspire Change brings the NFL, its players, and clubs together to support social justice efforts. It's profoundly humbling to support organizations like Alabama Appleseed.
Samantha, consumers are increasingly seeking brands that align with their target audiences. Do you have any advice for the people here today about a good strategy to work for marketing with target audiences and aligning with their purpose?
Sure, and I think Claire and I in our different roles both kind of touch on this. Claire works in social responsibility, so she's really doing the impact work, and there's opportunity to identify in the area where your business operates, where your fans live, what are the issues there. So especially when it comes to social justice, some of the issues facing Cleveland, where the Browns play, might be very different from the issues that are facing Minneapolis, where the Vikings play. And we have partners that can address all of those different issues, so we can really be connected to the communities. But from a marketing perspective, we do a lot of research around what matters to our fans. So we have a pretty deep understanding of different causes and issues that matter to our fans, that they want to hear from us about, that they feel like we should be involved in. And circling back to the question on authenticity, that doesn't mean that we look at that data and we say, let's create a platform or let's create a campaign about this issue. We look at it and say, oh, mental health, which has also been a huge topic today, is really important to our fans. We're already doing work in that space, whether it's connected to the work we do with military or some of the work we do with youth through Character Playbook and the program we have with Everfi. If that's important to our fans and we're doing the work, maybe there's opportunity for us to elevate that through how we market, how we story tell, so that we can create an even deeper connection with them.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything, Claire?
I can't tell if I'm bleeding into the next question, but we were talking about this backstage, and on social justice in particular, it can very easily be seen as a topic that could be divisive for our fans. That's certainly the narrative, certainly was the narrative as, political narratives get stirred up. And I think what we've really tried to do is focus on the issues, because people have so much more in common and believe so much more of the same things than they think. And the examples I would use is, if you asked most people, if there's someone in a mental health crisis who is not posing a danger to anyone else, who should be the first responder? A member of law enforcement or a mental health professional? Most people would say a mental health professional, including, by the way, law enforcement. So that's why we fund co-responder models across the country. Or if you ask someone, some of the gentlemen in the Alabama Appleseed video, some of them were incarcerated at the age of 20 for robbing a cash register at a gas station of $78, and he was still in prison at 81. If you ask most people, does that make sense? Should that individual be released? They would say yes. So I think sometimes it's very easy to say, the NFL shouldn't be getting involved in this, people don't want to listen to this, just play football. But I think, we've certainly learned so much. Once you really dig into the issues, we are obviously in a very divided country, but I think that there are some key things that most people will agree on.
Thank you. I wanted to talk a little bit about brands that we all recognize and brands that we feel, you think Patagonia, and what you associate empowerment and doing good and what our youth will learn as they get older or communities are learning. Are there any examples of really great campaigns that you've seen recently that give you ideas for future work for the NFL? I can give a really quick example at the train station this morning. Aunt Flo, who is putting free menstrual products in public bathrooms across the nation, schools, public buildings. And I just thought, wow, this is something that so many people can relate to as women go into these restrooms, and thinking about where are we learning from other brands and how can we teach each other to do more work that has cause marketing and social good associated with it.
This isn't a recent campaign, but I know as I've been doing our cause marketing for 8 years now, and when I first got started in it, I was looking into brands, and brands like Tom's, brands like Warby Parker. When you think about authenticity and what the connection of the cause is to the brand, like that, just making it so authentic, and the example that you used too, like it's really connected to their business. It's really connected to what they do and the product they sell. And I think, to Claire's point before, it's easy for people to say the NFL is a game. You don't have to be involved in social justice. There's not an immediate connection to people between the NFL and social justice. But for us, it's, the players are the core of our game. It's important to them. And I think just looking at brands who have made that clear connection and are steadfast in it and are committed to it, even if they get backlash for some of it, and that's obviously something that we've faced too over the past, what has it been now, 6 years that we've really focused on this, but it continues to be important to our players, and it continues to be, we think, the right thing to do. So we're still out there doing it, and we're still communicating about that to our fans.
I would just say, the word you use, steadfast, is the right one. Having courage of convictions is really hard. Even for a giant brand, and remembering that the loudest voices aren't always the majority. We have definitely experienced that. We experience it all the time, and really having to buckle down and say, this is important to us, this is the right thing to do, despite sort of whatever the commentary may be. And, one example that I really admired was when Dick's Sporting Goods decided to pull gun sales from their stores, and they got a firestorm of controversy, and they just sort of said, and not trying to open up the gun control conversation, but they just said, this is right for us, we're not wavering from that, and we're going to stick to it. And that's really hard for a brand to do, even a huge one.
Another thing I think that we talked about, and we talk about it with our work together, is if you can see it, you can be it. Can you talk just a little bit about the importance of children seeing who they could be from role models, and where you lean into that with the NFL? I mean, I know with the work that we do together, we often have players come to schools and events and talk and support the work, but how can we do more of that, outside of even just the marketing with NFL and the social impact work? How can we do more of that as just the nation? And do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I do think the work we do with you guys is a good example. We fund the 306 program, which is 306 is named after the motel room that Dr. King was sleeping in the night before he was assassinated, and it's an African-American history education that goes into middle and high schools throughout the country. And what's interesting is, normally when we fund something like that, we say, normally we would say that we wanted it to be in the 32 NFL of markets. And in this case, we said to Everfi, where is this most needed? Where are the fewest students really getting substantive African American history? Let's pay for it to go there. So we started in 5 states, one of which was like Montana, not exactly where you would think we would necessarily be putting our funding. And then over the course of time, now it's nationwide. But that's something we did intentionally to make sure it was going where it was most needed. And certainly there are modules in there about the untold stories of amazing individuals, African American individuals over the course of time that I certainly didn't know, and students certainly don't know before they experience the module.
And thanks to the NFL sponsorship of that, we've reached almost 70,000 students since it started in 2018 with you all. So we're moving into a new generation of work with that for untold stories of current Black Titans and in the business world, and really being able to bring that out into youth, and really just thinking through like just some of these great examples of the work that you're doing, realizing this isn't working all the time, is it?
Basic, like you're like that.
Okay. We have another video. Do you want me to cue it up, or should we play it first? Do you want to play the other video?
Sure, I'll just say Claire's talked a lot about the evolution of our Inspire Change work, how it's really become more focused, and I would say our marketing has evolved there too. And you know, we've had to try things, we've had to take risks. Some of them have worked, some of them haven't, but we've now gotten to a place where we know that focusing on an authentic, inspiring, really uplifting tone, and focusing on the positive that the work does and the positive change that we're seeing, that's what helps unify people around what, as we've talked about, can be a very divisive issue, and really rallies people around it. So this next one is from our ad campaign last year, and hopefully you see that come through.
Every week, you see our stats. But just so you know, we see yours too. We see you, Gianna, leading 100% of your students to graduate on time. We see you, Diane, training hundreds of public defenders to provide equal justice for all. We see all of you across the nation putting up the numbers that inspire change in your communities. We see you, change makers, and we support you.
That's a great example of building bridges through opportunity, and all of the work that you're doing, I think, is really showcasing that with cause marketing and social impact, and making sure that the next generation is having the resources and the information that they need, but from a very, like you said, the work is happening and you're just doing the storytelling. So it's really great to see videos like that.
And those were our real partners in there. Those were individuals from our actual partners.
Should we open up to questions now? I don't want to go over. Are there any questions for Clare or Samantha?
Hi, Rick with Brand Innovators Strategy Group. Great discussion. Thank you for sharing. It's truly inspiring to hear how the NFL is investing in all these programs to make a real impact, a social impact. What's the process for you selecting of so many worthy causes out there? What's the process for you selecting where you're going to make investments?
I have learned a lot about grant making in the last 6 years, but we have definitely over the course of time become much more disciplined with it and added a lot of structure. So as you can imagine, we get outreach all the time from players, from executives, from everyone knows someone in this space, right? And so it's a little bit of a triage method, and we figure out what requests might be better served by our teams. Teams also do a lot of social justice giving depending on the issues in their communities. And then we have a grant cycle every fall for new grant partners, and then a renewal cycle in the spring. So over the course of time, we've funded, I think we're up to 45 different organizations, and at any given time right now we have 23 current partners. And we try to really make sure we're not a check writing body. We are in very frequent contact with our partners. We try to find ways to be equitable to all of them, to lift some of them up in ways like this, and find ways to lift up others in different ways. And so that's something that I spend most of my time doing, is really engaging with the partners. And you know, when people ask us about our body of work, it's actually not our body of work at all. It is truly the partners' work that we just want to lift up.
That was a great question, and you make a great point that you don't want to just write the check. The sponsorship that the NFL the course sponsorship for all of the students. It's not just supporting the cost of the education, it's being in the classroom, it's being at events, it's having the NFL executives and players really human connection. And I think that that's a really important piece of education's important, all the work that you're doing, but you always show up. And I think that that's really great to have a partner that always shows up.
Hi, Kristen from Med Marketplace. I think similarly, someone asked Kenneth, how do you allow your employees to showcase things that matter to them through the Mental Health Coalition? I was at a Brand Innovators conference last week where they're calling it helmets off, right? Players developing themselves off the field. How do you allow them to get involved in what you're doing?
Our primary group that we work with on all of the grant making, I actually should have mentioned this, is a group of players that comprise the Players Coalition. They were started by Anquan Bolden and Malcolm Jenkins in that time period, sort of 6 or 7 years ago. There was a group of players who wasn't ready to sort of work with us, and we completely respected that. And then a group of players that said, we might not agree with you on everything, but you guys have the money and the marketing power, and we're going to push you, and I mean that as a positive, to use it to draw attention to these issues. So we really, in the beginning, it was much more of that sort of, we were learning how to work with each other, and now 6 years in, we are partners, we talk all the time, we go back and forth, they have issues that they focus on more, like for instance, players are often more free to take part in sort of advocacy events on Capitol Hill, etc. It's much more difficult to mobilize the entire NFL or a team to do that, so there are some things the players lean into more, and then there are some things that we're able to lean into more, but it is absolutely a partnership. And then what we always say is, you don't have to be a part of the Players Coalition to work with us. We will work with any player who wants, there's all kinds of grants available to players, et cetera, so it's really, we put it in the hands of the players to decide how engaged they want to be with us, but they can still absolutely receive grants and things like that for social justice issues.
And I'll add too that flows through to our marketing, so we don't just tap the biggest name player at the moment to be a spokesperson for a cause. We really look for players who have a true connection, either because they're doing work in that area, maybe they have a family member that's connected to the cause, and that's why you'll see, and that wasn't, obviously Saquon Barkley is a pretty well-known name, but in a lot of our cause marketing, you'll see players that don't necessarily have name recognition, but they're passionate about the cause, and that really comes through in their excitement to be a part of the content, their, how they communicate about it, and that connects to the authenticity, and also just gives us an opportunity to tell their story and highlight the work that they're doing.
Was there a question over there?
Yes. I don't need a microphone. I think I can speak loudly enough. Clare, Samantha, thank you so much for sharing your individual stories overall and continuing to inspire change. My comment and actual question is, you spoke briefly about the apprehension in regards to select parties, seeing the NFL being involved in select causes. Hearing some commentary throughout the day and the thought process of having that empathy quotient and the understanding that it is finite, how do you continue to inspire those around you to be a part of your cause and also challenge those select partners from a licensee perspective as well to also join similar causes?
It's a good question, and depending on the day, I think we have different answers. I remember pretty early in this process, we were really working hard, really, on our end, trying to make sure that the work was real and it could stand up. And then there was an owners meeting, and a couple people at the owners meeting made a comment, and it was all people wanted to talk about was who was kneeling, who was standing, et cetera, et cetera. And I just had this moment where I realized if I was going to do the work and do it well, I had to sort of mentally separate myself from whatever the media narrative was going to be, because there are things we can and can't control. We can't control decisions about who's kneeling, who's standing, what's being mandated, what's not. What we can control is the work. And so once we really dug into the work we wanted to fund, once people learn about that, it's very easy to bring them into the fold, because between the 23 partners, there's something in there that's going to appeal to them. The phrase we often use to get people into the fold is, we're trying to break down barriers to opportunity. Again, most people would find it hard to argue with that. That's a pretty universally appealing idea. And so once you start there, you can really sort of gauge their interests, and there's something in there for everyone. We will always have individuals who are nervous or standoffish about it, but I think that the more we can sort of educate people on the work our partners are doing, there is something in there for everyone, and if there's not, then that's a conversation for that person really, not necessarily for us.
Yeah, and I think too, it goes back to what we were talking about how our marketing has evolved and how, you know, I won't necessarily say that we had some missteps, but we've taken risks and not all of them have paid off. You know, originally some of our communication about it was much harder hitting on the issues and it maybe felt a little heavier, and I think that's where it starts to feel more divisive. But you'll see here, to Claire's point, like it's hard to argue with the fact that young people should all have similar opportunities to succeed, right? If that's how we're getting into the issue and that's how we're getting into the work, it's a lot easier for people to feel that empathy and to feel inspired to support it and to be a part of it.
Still have a few minutes.
I love the microphone. I feel like my cause, my cleats, was a game changer.
Yeah.
I don't even know when it started. I just feel like when I saw that, it just changed everything about the NFL from a cause perspective. How did that come to be? Is that as much of a spark plug as I think it is?
Yeah, so my cause, my cleats actually started the year before Inspire Change, so we've been very busy in the past 6 or 7 years, and that's another great example that really started with the players. We had gotten a lot of feedback that, you know, through Crucial Catch, through Salute to Service, at the time Play 60, which we really brought on field, the players were supporting the league's causes. That doesn't mean that they didn't have connections to them and they weren't also involved in them, but we were, you know, putting the league's causes on field. Players are passionate about so many things and they know the power of the game day platform, and they wanted the opportunity to kind of take the field over and have the same visibility for their causes as we give to the league's work. So we started My Cause, My Cleats in 2016, I believe, and just, immediately saw a huge response from fans. Fans feel a connection to the player. They're the people behind the game. Someone here, I think, might have been you, who mentioned helmets off, and that's a real approach from us. It's a lot of other sports have the benefit of, their players don't have helmets. You can see their faces. You can create that connection. Our players are obviously very kind of masked on game day, but My Cause, My Cleats, and really all of our cause marketing work, and it's now evolved to a lot of our other content and marketing, it gives fans an opportunity to really learn who the players are and to learn what they're passionate about and to create a point of connection with them. So it just really took off, and we're still doing it now 7, 8, 9, I don't even know where we are years later, and it's still it's something that the players look forward to. It's something that we create a ton of content around just because it's something that fans are really hungry for, and it's something that players really want to be involved in.
It's absolutely my favorite campaign I've ever worked on from the outset. My favorite day is when we get the list of player choices and there's a notes column where they write why they chose that issue, and you learn so much about so many of them and the things that they're going through in their own lives. It's really incredible. Fun fact, when we launched it, it was going to be called This Is Us. This is before the TV show aired, so My Cause, My Cleats is probably a better choice, but that was definitely in the running.
One thing you mentioned, this is not My Cause, My Cleats campaign, but the character playbook work that you all sponsor for education is an opportunity for students in person and virtually to connect with players. And that is something really special because it's around mental health and creating positivity in the classroom. And when the players connect with the students, whether it's on the virtual screen or in the classroom, but really seeing their faces and seeing the expression, that's the human connection. I feel like that is so needed to evolve change and to build these bridges. And I just wanted to mention that that was such a great opportunity that we're able to do that work with the players as well with you all. mantra, thoughts, words to live by?
No, thank you for the good questions, though.
Thank you, everyone.
Awesome, great session.